It has now been a week since the Root of Nightmares raid dropped, and with it came the new It has now been a week since the Root of Nightmares dropped, and with it came 5 new raid weapons and some of the most unique armor sets that we've ever seen. However, pretty much any time I've seen people discussing the new raid weapons online, it's usually just an argument over something completely ridiculous. You've got lobotomites on Twitter and TikTok frothing at the mouth and crying about reissued or reskinned weapons, when that's as far from the truth as possible. These are all arguably very underused silhouettes on all the guns, and none of them retain a single feature from the original, aside from the LFR. The sidearm is a completely different frame, element type, and slot than the 7th Seraph sidearm that was only ever used once and was rarely available post Season of the Worthy. The auto rifle is similar to the main auto rifle design Bungie has used for years, especially back in D1, but most recently in D2 with the Shadow Price weapon. Now, the fleshy egregore shit on it actually does look pretty neat though, and differentiates it enough to where my first thought when I looked at it wasn't just, oh, Shadow Price. It's a 720, which to my knowledge has not been done with that frame before, and it's Strand. We do need more 720 auto rifles, especially if you've been huffing enough copium to think that they'll be viable if and when 750 SMGs get gutted. Grenade launcher is not bad and can roll with some niche damage perk combos. Many people have been comparing it to the one-off and no longer obtainable Through Fire and Flood, which again, who gives a shit? Different frame, energy type, and it was only used once fucking ages ago, and nobody has one in their vault because it sucked. Shotgun, NESSA'S Ablation, looks almost like a heavily modified Suros frame, but it definitely has the most unique and standout design out of all the raid legendaries, as it looks like it's been the most tweaked from the original design. It's also just a good slug and gets volatile and repulsor brace perks, among many other good perk combos. The Trace Rifle is just a solar trace rifle, which has invited far too many comparisons to Retrace Path, when it's really most obvious that the design was ripped from a Lego Dragon. The perks on this thing have entirely power-crept Retrace though, so again, no need for the pointless pants pissing and comparisons. The LFR, BRIAR'S Contempt, is very similar to the CORSAIR'S Wrath from Season of the Hunt. The main difference though is that this one is one of the 3-round burst LFRs that was just introduced back in the last year in Season of the Haunted, and it actually has good perk combos. CORSAIR'S Wrath was one of the worst LFRs, and there was a reason you never saw anybody using a solar linear fusion rifle until Cataclysmic came around, and it was not because it was hard to get. It was very easy to get. It just had absolutely fuck all for good perks. The only thing that's still similar to the design in the first place is the grip area, so there's really still almost no point in comparing the two. A lot of people have a really hard time discerning between content Bungie is literally just giving back to us that they already made us pay for once, and weapons that have similar base models. But those people are either interaction farming or looked at the sun a bit too long and made it everyone else's problem. The other argument that I've been seeing regarding these weapons is that people are saying that they're absolutely terrible and have no place in any content in the game right now, and that's just also completely not true and just a massive cope and overreaction, because they probably either are still butthurt that more people cleared the raid than they wanted to, or they just don't like using Strand, which, fair enough, but still, that doesn't mean the weapons are completely useless. It's been a bit less of an actual argument, and more so people posting a picture of one of the new weapons or mentioning a role that they like, and people jumping down their throats about how it's not better than Forbearance or not Anarchy 2.0. The weapons are not as game-changing as any of the VOW or DSC weapons, admittedly, but they all have more than one fun perk combo that either synergizes really well with your class or with your builds for PvP, and that's more than a lot of raid weapons have done over the past few years. Michael's Revenge, the sidearm, is the first rapid-fire frame in the Kinetic Strand or Stasis slot, and can get a 0.4 TTK with Swashbuckler times 5 up. To make it even better, the gun can roll Pugilist in the first slot, which is really great to pair with Swashbuckler. It can also get Elemental Capacitor and Perpetual Motion in the first slot, and Offhand Strike in the second, which is just a crazy strong perk on weapons other than just Heritage. Rufus's Fury is a Strand 720 RPM auto rifle, and the first of its kind. Now granted, that's not saying much since Strand just launched this season, but still, that's a lot faster than we got any Stasis weapons, and it took a whole year to get a Stasis 720. Then can get Demolitionist and Adrenaline Junkie, which can help it reach a 0.5 TTK really quickly. This thing can also outrange the Ikelos SMG, but not by too much, so you do have to be a bit careful if you plan on challenging anyone using it with this thing. Demo and Hatchling is another good combo for Strand Warlock builds if you don't want to use Quicksilver Storm since it's currently bugged, or if you don't want to use Osteo since it would take up an exotic slot. The last perk combo I'd keep an eye on is Reconstruction and Target Lock. The magazine can be fully overflown before you start firing and will reload as you shoot it. This thing goes up to 110 rounds in the magazine with just Reconstruction, but if you pair it with Backup Mag and Extended Mag, it can reach 146 rounds, and that is nothing to scoff at with this perk. BRIAR'S Contempt is the third 3-round burst aggressive frame LFR that we've gotten, and the first solar one. It thankfully does not suffer from the same recoil issues that plagued Fire and Forget when it was first most available, but it is suffering a bit from the LFR nerf. Bait and switch on Cataclysmic will pump out more consistent damage unless you're able to get surrounded procced, and then you can do 5% more damage. If you rock the enhanced version, that goes all the way up to 7% more damage, so you're sitting at a 42% damage buff if you ever crafted one of these. This thing can also get Reconstruction or Demo in the first slot, which are both great perks for damage phases. If surrounded is a bit niche for you, which you do have to be within 24 feet or 8 meters of an enemy to proc it, Focus Fury and High Impact Reserves are both other good options. NESSA'S Ablation is most likely to be overlooked out of all the raid weapons though. It's not arc like Philo and cannot use the same surge mods as Anarchy or Hothead, but if a Void equivalent to Hothead comes around, this thing is going to be ridiculous. It gets the same S++ tier perk combo as Heritage, being Reconstruction and Vorpal, but it can also get Demo and Opening for PvP, as well as Repulsor Brace and Destabilizing Rounds for either low-end PvE or just something fun to run on Void Titan with no backup plans. KORAXIS'S Distress is the first grenade launcher to roll with Reconstruction, and that's a little bit unfortunate. We were promised a pretty big grenade launcher buff this season, and it just did not come to fruition. Grenade launchers still suck in any form of content you could possibly be using them for. It honestly just felt like a buff to make them slightly more viable for ad clear, and this thing does get chain reaction in the third column, so if you want to pair that with Frenzy, go ahead, I guess. But Full Court is not a good damage perk on grenade launchers compared to things like Explosive Light, Cascade Point, and Surrounded, which this thing can also roll with. Now, Surrounded may seem like a dangerous perk to run on a grenade launcher, but in the third column, it does not just get Reconstruction and Field Prep, it also gets Danger Close. Danger Close is active as long as you're within 45 fucking feet or 15 meters of enemies. That's absolutely ridiculous. Honestly, it doesn't make any sense for it to proc that far away from enemies, but I'm glad it does because it also provides a 40% damage reduction to self-inflicted damage with this thing. Now, it's not going to be as useful as Wendigo, Typhon, or the Seasonal Grenade Launcher, which is farmable from collections, though it's ridiculously difficult to get a 5 out of 5, as I spent over 2,000 enhancement cores trying to do so and didn't. But I digress. It's still something to keep in mind in case grenade launchers get a buff that actually matters at some point in the future, so maybe in the expansion after Final Shape. Now, my all-time favorite weapon from this raid, though, is the Trace Rifle, and it's not even close. ACASIA'S Dejection is a Trace Rifle that can get Target Lock and Reconstruction will allow Target Lock to hit 110.5% bonus damage, thanks to the magazine doubling and refilling while it fires. It can also get Vorpal, Paracausal Affinity, and Incandescent in the last column. None of the first column perks really compare to Reconstruction, though, unless you're a big Rewind Wounds or Perpetual Motion kind of guy. The raid weapons are not bad, but most of them have better alternatives out there right now. If the raid had come with a rocket launcher that could get Reconstruction, we'd maybe have a viable heavy from it. The sidearm and auto are definitely more niche and apply quite well to strand builds, but may be outclassed once the Immortal is finally available from Trials. They're still really fun options for right now, though, and they definitely do fill different roles than the Immortal could. The shotgun is going to be very fun for now, and very busted when we do end up getting a good Void heavy. If you guys found this helpful, don't forget to leave a like, comment, or subs. It really does help support the channel, and I'll catch you guys later. Hopefully I'll be dropping individual weapon reviews once I get these things crafted, so if you are interested in that, don't forget to stick around.